TNA Victory Road, September 26th, 2025. What a collection of things I did not want to watch. That's what this show was. And it was still interesting, but what a collection of things I had no interest in. Oh boy. I watch TNA pay-per-views, and generally, I don't hate them, but they've been getting very tough to sit through for the last 2 or 3 years because of how weak the roster is. I mean, incredibly weak. And things have not changed, even with the NXT partnership, but there's still some solid things here. The pre-show had a triple threat match. Zachary Wentz defeated Cedric Alexander and Trey Miguel. I don't know why this match happened. I watched TNA right before I watched the pay-per-view, so I watched like 5 hours of TNA. Jesus. I still don't know why they were wrestling each other. They had a tag team. Well, they did a thing where the Rascals was wrestling each other to see who the number one contender for the X Division title was going to be, and Myron Reed won that. So he's in the main event against Leon Slater. But then they had a tag team match that was Cedric Alexander and Leon Slater versus Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel, and then we ended up here. And I don't remember how we ended up here with this match, but this would have fit better on the show, in my opinion, because this was a fast-paced match. It was a nothing match, and it's probably why I was on the pre-show. And Zachary Wentz doesn't win anything for winning this match. He just kind of won, but whatever. The first match on the show officially was something that made me want to throw my head against the wall. The System, which of course includes Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards, versus the Order 4, which is the Goons of Mustafa Ali. This is a pre-show match, and it was on the pay-per-view. The System won. Afterwards, Ash by Elegance came out. Her match had already been canceled because Masha Slamovich was outed as a domestic abuser. But then they announced that Ash by Elegance had an announcement on the pay-per-view show. And she announced that she can no longer compete, to the best of her ability. So she's going to step away and forfeit the championship. And they didn't even hint at what could have been the problem. They didn't say if she was pregnant. They didn't say if she was injured. They didn't say she was sick. They didn't say anything. Just that she cannot compete. And so she's going to drop the title and leave. That was it. And I sat there and I was like, man, that's weird. And usually when a wrestlers have got to go away for a while, they at least tell you what happened. But in this situation, they dropped all pretense of the character. So she wasn't even in character when she did this. She was just herself. She came out and even referenced the character that, I was being a bitch to you guys, but, this has been the greatest run of my life, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what happened to you? What's going on? But no, they didn't. We weren't told anything. So she coughed up the title and left. Santino said that there was a tag team championship match that was scheduled for tonight between the Elegance brand and the Iconics, which they now call the Inspiration. That match is canceled too and going to be moved to Thursday, but they canceled that match so that both teams can be in a battle royal. And the battle royal was going to be a 2-part battle royal where the last 2 people in the match were going to wrestle later in the show to decide who was going to be the Knockouts champion. And then that person is going to wrestle Indy Hartwell at Bound for Glory, because Indy Hartwell is technically the number 1 contender. Did you get all that? Okay. So Masha Slamovich is out because she's a domestic abuser. Ash by Elegance is out for unknown reason. So their match is canceled. The Inspiration had a match with the Elegance brand. That match is canceled too. Both of those teams, that's 4 people, are going to be put in a battle royal that's about to occur. That battle royal is going to end up with 2 winners. Those 2 winners are going to wrestle later that night. In that match, they're going to crown a new Knockouts World Champion. Indy Hartwell will be the referee for that match. Why? I don't know. And then the winner of that match will wrestle Indy Hartwell at Bound for Glory. That's how they set it up. It's more steps than it needed to be. It's literally more steps than it needed to be. So convoluted. All right? So convoluted. But here's the kicker. They have the Battle Royal. And it's literally 9 people, 10 people. All right? Showing how thin the roster is. The Inspiration and the Elegance brand is 4 of the people. Then there's Danny Luna and Kalani Jordan, just a lone NXT girl in there. The other people don't really even matter. Well, Jody Threat, she doesn't matter. And there's another girl in there wearing green, she didn't matter. They didn't put Tessa Blanchard in this thing. They didn't put Victoria Crawford in this thing. There was other young ladies that they hired who are European. I forget what their names are. They weren't in this thing. I believe Zaya Brookside was in here. But there was like quite a few women who is in their Knockouts division that are not in here. You will also think that because they have to, that they were losing Ash by Elegance and that they were losing Masha Slamovich, that they would probably make a phone call to some people and get some more bodies in here, or at least call NXT and have them send more people. They didn't. So they had this very stingy battle royal. There's probably 10 people maximum. And I thought naturally Danny Luna is the one girl that they're pushing. She's, just turned heel. She's, doing something important here. She should be the one that's going to go into the match. No, they decided that Lei Ying Lee and Kalani Jordan would be the final 2. Lei Ying Lee, who was Xia Li in NXT, and Kalani Jordan. I'm like, okay. Upon seeing this, I said, well, obviously Kalani Jordan's winning the belt. It's obvious. Okay? It's obvious to me that they're not putting the belt on Lei Ying Lee. So they had the match, which was the co-main event of the evening. Well, not the co-main event. It went on third from the end. Kalani Jordan versus Lei Ying Lee for the Knockouts Championship. Indy Hartwell is a special guest referee. So Kalani Jordan in this match. Now this match was put together last minute. She botched a flying hurricanrana outside the ring. I guess Lei Ying Lee just couldn't carry her body weight, even though Kalani Jordan is very small. And it looked more like a power bomb than a flying hurricanrana, which is what it was supposed to be. It was obviously a botch. And Kalani Jordan just popped right on up. Like, yeah. She didn't sell it like a power bomb. She just kind of was like, okay. And that spot was fucked. And she just kept going. And she just kept going. And that was it. Look, Kalani Jordan's been in the business, 2 years, 3 years? She'll get it. But that was a nasty bump that she ended up taking. Kalani Jordan hit a frog splash later on, only got a 2 count. They did a spot in the match where Kalani Jordan was doing one of her flippity doodah moves, and she ended up leg dropping Indy Hartwell. So Indy Hartwell was down. At that point, Lei Ying Lee hit a spin kick, which is one of her big moves. And there was a late count. 1-2, she kicked out. Later on, Kalani Jordan hit a split leg stunner, followed by a split leg moonsault, and Kalani Jordan won the Knockouts World title. Excellent decision. Okay, very, very, very smart decision by TNA. The reason why this is a smart decision is that, and this becomes important later, Bound for Glory has a theme now. And the theme is TNA versus NXT. That's the theme. So a lot of people were like, well, what was the TNA invasion all about if they were just going to take another TNA title to NXT? What was that invasion for? Well, remember what triggered the invasion in the first place is the fact that NXT keeps winning the TNA championships and defending them against NXT talent. So that was the reason why everybody was so upset. Most people didn't kick on to this. They weren't paying attention because they don't like either show or whatever. But that's the the reason why everybody was so mad. Is that Trick Williams wasn't defending the title against TNA talent. He was defending the title against NXT talent. So, and JC Jane had done the same thing. So they were kind of frustrated about that. And that boiled over to them invading NXT. So Kalani Jordan has now won the Knockouts title. I would imagine they're going to do the same thing where she's going to defend the Knockouts championship on NXT against other NXT talent, and it's going to be a problem between her and Indy Hartwell. Now, again, when this thing started, it was a couple of weeks ago, they shot this thing so far out. Indy Hartwell was announced as the number one contender for the Knockouts World title at Bound for Glory, and it seemed like it was going to be Indy Hartwell versus JC Jane for that title, which would have kept the same theme, TNA versus NXT. The theme would have been the same, except they took the belt off of JC Jane and gave it to Ash by Elegance, which destroyed the theme because now Ash by Elegance is already a TNA wrestler and Indy Hartwell is already a TNA wrestler. Now, unless she was supposed to lose the belt back to JC Jane or something, the theme was not going to stick. So once they made the decision to blow up the Masha Slamovich match and blow up the Ash by Elegance title run, they decided to just go back to the theme, which is TNA versus NXT. Now, how they came to Kalani Jordan of all people, I don't know. But she is one of the better ones on the roster. So, okay, fine. You give her the belt, that's fine. But she hasn't been in the business that long. And now she's a world champion. And it's shocking. This is Carmelo Hayes' girlfriend. And look at what God's doing for her. Look at what God is doing for Carmelo Hayes' best friend, Trick Williams, his running buddy. To be quite honest, his protege. Because even though I think Trick is older than Carmelo's been in the business since like 2018 or something like that. While Trick Williams has been wrestling since like 2021. Like combined, Carmelo has more experience than both of the TNA world champions who are just happen to be his friends. And he's losing matches on SmackDown. That's tremendous. But overall, the TNA versus NXT theme for Bound for Glory works. They're clearly going to do some kind of invasion angle probably afterwards or whatever the case may be. So things didn't work out in their favor and they tried to fix it as best as possible. And that would make sense to why they decided not to put Indy Hartwell in the championship match on this show, which naturally would have been the first thing you would have done. Is Indy Hartwell is already the number one contender. So we're going to have a battle royal. The winner of the battle royal will wrestle Indy Hartwell and they'll decide who the champion is. And then you'll figure out what you're going to do at Bound for Glory later. But they decided not to do that. Mainly because Bound for Glory is 2 weeks away. So they just decided to make a new champion. She's not going to be champion that long. I don't think so. I think she's going to lose to Indy Hartwell. And we'll be back to normal. Back to whatever TNA had planned initially. Now that match, though, because Indy Hartwell couldn't even have a good match with Tessa Blanchard, I'm not sure she's going to be able to be saved by Kalani Jordan. I just don't think so. Kalani Jordan is maybe somewhat prodigious when it comes to being a spot-based lightweight wrestler, sort of working that cruiserweight style. She might be a bit of a prodigy when it comes to that, but she's not going to be able to carry Indy Hartwell because Tessa Blanchard is fucking brilliant, and she couldn't get much out of Indy Hartwell. And Mercedes is also great, and she couldn't get much out of Indy Hartwell. So it's going to be a whole lot of not good. That one's going to be one to see. It's going to be one for the ages. One way or the other, it's going to be one for the ages. All right, let's speed run through some of the matches I didn't care about. The Nemeth Boys lost to Matt Cardona and the Hometown Man. I literally had anything else to do other than watching Matt Cardona and the Hometown Man. Santana beat Ridge Holland. I actually did like this. Ridge Holland, he gets a bad rap because, of course, he injured Big E. And he's had the weirdest career of any pro wrestler I've ever seen. The guy started on NXT UK as sort of a brawler, bruiser kind of guy, kind of generic. Then they made him Sheamus's buddy in the Brawling Brutes, and he seemed to be going somewhere. Then he injured Big E. He floundered on SmackDown for a while before they sent him back to NXT. And he was sort of they pushed him as a serious thing in NXT. It looked like they were going to make him NXT champion, and then they yanked the carpet from underneath him, and he started floundering in NXT. Remember, they killed Chase University with this guy. They used him to kill Chase University, which was a big deal at the time. He floundered. Then they sent him to Evolve, of all places. So he went from NXT UK to SmackDown, which was up. He wrestled at WrestleMania, if I remember correctly. And then he got bumped all the way back down to NXT. Then he got bumped down further to Evolve. And then from Evolve, he pops up on TNA. As he's on TNA as a henchman for Trick Williams. To soften up Mike Santana for the Bound for Glory match. They had a very solid match. You know, it would have been a better TV match than a pay-per-view match. But Ridge Holland is not a bad pro wrestler, right? He's very, very generic. He's struggling with the gimmick ideas, but he's a good heavyweight wrestler. You know, as good as, maybe not as good as like a Jake something or even a Hammerstone, but he's in that class of heavyweight wrestlers that probably never be world champion on a major stage, but a very good, solid mid-card guy, a lot like a Warlord or, a Hercules Hernandez or something like that, in that territory where he looks great. He looks too good to fire him, but he's not good enough that you would elevate him to the main event. And Santana needed a big win, so they gave him a big win over an NXT guy, and they had a really solid match. There was a superplex by Mike Santana that he floated over and tried to do like another one, and Ridge Holland countered it into a superplex power slam, which I had only seen Bill Goldberg do, which was crazy. Anyway, Santana wins with spin the block, which is a discus lariat. Afterwards, Trick Williams attacked Santana and hit him with the belt and all that kind of stuff. All right, so their match is set for Bound for Glory in terms of the main event. The next match was Mustafa Ali defeating Moose. This match was for the advantage in the Hardcore War, which is going to take place at Bound for Glory. So it's basically like a War Games match between the System and the Order 4. Now, they had a match earlier in the night that I didn't watch. I'm not even going to lie to you. I didn't want to watch that. So, but Mustafa Ali and Moose was fine. In terms of a match, it was not bad. It could have been better, but it was fine. But these are the two captains of their team, trying to see who's going to have the team advantage at Hardcore War, and Mustafa Ali won. Not much more to say about that. Joe Hendry defeated Eric Young. I didn't want to watch this either because I don't want to watch Eric Young ever. Eric Young had attacked Joe Hendry and thought he had gotten rid of him, but instead, Joe Hendry is back. On commentary, they did mention that wherever Joe Hendry goes, we're going to support him. And I'm like, that's very interesting wording. That's very interesting wording. You can... Is he done with TNA now? Nobody follows TNA, really. So it's hard to say whether Joe Hendry is just an NXT talent now and he's popping up and making appearances at TNA, and whether his contract is up yet. But TNA acts like he's done, and NXT acts like he's there every week. So I guess he might as well be an NXT talent. It doesn't really matter, if we're being honest. I don't care about this match. And this was, quite frankly, the match that made me want to jump out of a window. Matt Hardy versus AJ Francis in a tables match. Bro, I swear to Jesus. I've seen better mobility when I watched old people play basketball in the YMCA when I was like 12 years old. I used to see dudes and they were in their 40s trying to hoop, icing down their knees. They had better mobility than these two. These two people were like watching people wrestle on stilts. All right? Stilts and roller skates. This was horrendous. horrendous, bro. Matt Hardy should not be wrestling. He needs to retire. He needs to give it up. He will be wrestling the Dudley Boys, however, at Bound for Glory, because that match is already set. I don't know why Jeff wasn't here. I should have paid more attention to that episode of NXT-TNA, to be quite honest. I wasn't paying attention. But Matt, oh yeah, it's because it's in Canada, and Jeff can't travel to Canada. Okay, that explains it. In any event, Matt Hardy won the match. He leg dropped AJ Francis to a table. Who gives a shit? But they announced that at Bound for Glory, it's going to be the Hardys versus the Dudleys. Hopefully nobody dies. They need to have an ambulance right in the aisleway. Right? They need to be oxygen ready. It needs to be ice ready. You need to have some Blue Star ointment, some Bengay, some Preparation H, icy hot. All of that stuff needs to be laid out and ready after this match because they're all going to need it. They're all going to need it. It's going to be it's either going to be great or it's going to be dog shit. There's only one way to go. And TNA seems to be leaning into that. They're going to have something that might be interesting, but it can only go one way. Either it's going to be really good or it's going to be really, really bad. Okay? And, they're hoping that you want to see a car crash and that you want to see this thing go really, really badly. But if the Hardys win, the Dudleys will shake their hands and call them the greatest tag team of all time. And if the Dudleys win, they win the tag team championships. That's kind of how it works. Who cares? Frankie Kazarian defeated Steve Maclin to win the international title. Maclin is, for some reason, involved with El Macias, who was Judas Macias in AAA. He's now in TNA. He was in TNA before, back in the heyday of TNA. I don't know what he's doing here now, though. He's just there. I didn't like the finish to this match. They worked very hard, but I don't care about Steve Maclin or Frankie Kazarian. I don't care about these guys. They didn't have a bad match. I just not into the characters, So if you're into the characters, you probably enjoyed this. But for me, it was a well-worked match between two people I didn't want to watch. Kazarian ends up winning after he kicked the rope into Steve Maclin's nutsack and then did a slingshot cutter, like a slingshot RKO, which I don't know if that works in terms of physics, but it ended up being a finish. So Maclin was the first international champion. He held the belt for a while, but again, I don't care about this. So now Frankie Kazarian, who's been crowing about being the king of TNA, he's finally won a championship, so that's fine. Good for him. El Macias being in TNA, I don't know. Good for him, I guess. I mean, if you're going to use AAA talent, I can think of better people than El Macias. I mean, he's extremely old. He's like 50, if we're being honest. But he might be older than 50, for God's sake. I don't know how old he is. He's been around forever. But, okay, I guess. Next, they announced the TNA Hall of Fame class for 2025, which was Mickie James and the Beautiful People, which is Velvet Sky and Angelina Love. So all three of them, women's only, Hall of Fame class, very well deserved. The Beautiful People were a top draw for TNA for a while. Even though they were kind of annoying on screen, they were one of the few acts on TNA that actually drew any interest from the audience. And Mickie James is Mickie James. I mean, she goes without saying. The main event of this pay-per-view event was Myron Reed versus Leon Slater for the X Division title. Now, I got to tell you, not only was this match really good, even though it was babyface versus babyface, which is not my favorite, I was glad to see TNA finally giving young guys an opportunity to be in the top spots in the show. This has been something I have complained and railed about for years when it comes to TNA. They finally fucking did it. They got two young guys who just happen to be brothers, very talented guys, and let them go out there and have a spot fest match that told a decent story, and it worked. I think it was done very well. Myron Reed has a little bit more experience. He's been around for a while, but Leon Slater is more aggressive. He's also the defending champion, so he's coming out swinging. They did so many spots in this match. Can't go through it all, but One of the things that they did was that was very interesting was they did a series of suplex counters. So I believe it was Myron Reed trying to suplex Leon Slater. He countered it. And then he countered the counter, and they both end up suplexing. Well, one of them end up suplexing the other over the top rope. But they were still tied up, even when the suplex over the top rope happened. So then, when Leon Slater tried to suplex Myron Reed, now they're on the floor. Myron Reed countered it into a flipping stunner on the floor. Sounds very convoluted. It looked cooler than I can possibly describe, but it was a very cool move. Leon Slater did a bunch of jumps. He did his corner jump, which I've seen him and Montez Ford do, and they do it tremendously. I mean, there's so much air in between the way Leon Slater does these moves, and it's tremendous. There's an over-the-top rope cutter by Myron Reed, which he does all the time, where he runs across the ring, leaps over the top rope, grabs the head of his opponent who is standing on the apron, and he gives an RKO to the floor. I don't know why Myron Reed likes to do that move. He does it in every match, but he nailed it here too. Just nasty looking move. Followed up with a 450 splash. He only got a 2 count because, of course, we're just killing each other here. And the big finish was a top rope corkscrew suplex by Leon Slater. It might technically have been a brain buster, but Myron Reed sold it like a suplex. So it was basically like a corkscrew superplex to Myron Reed, followed up by a Swanton 450. Leon Slater wins the match. It was a really, really, really fun match. I thoroughly suggest everybody go watch it. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea because there's no real story going into this. Myron Reed won a match to get here, and the only reason this is the main event is probably because there was so much chicanery with the women's title and all that sort of stuff happening. So they gave these young guys an opportunity, went out there and they killed it. They had the best match of the night. They did a really good job, and then they put the cherry on top. Santino came out, called Leon Slater a superstar, and said that he had a certain match in his mind that he wanted to do for Bound for Glory. So he announced that Leon Slater will be challenged by Javon Evans at Bound for Glory. Now, look, let me tell you something, okay? I'm about this, all right? This is going to hit like fucking crack, all right? Look, now, again, I'm a story guy first. But if you're going to give me spot monkey shit, this is the kind of spot monkey shit that I want to see, right? This is Black Lucha Libre. This is what I want to see, all right? Young boys going out there doing the most athletic shit they can possibly do, because why the fuck not, right? If you're not going to give me a story, at least give me cool dudes doing cool shit, all right? And these guys are cool, and they're going to go do some cool shit. There's no heat between the two of them, which is a negative, obviously. But when it comes to being the opener for Bound for Glory, which it probably will be, I don't think they're going to be topped. I think they're going to have the match of the night. This is going to be insane. All right. And Javon Evans didn't appear in person. He appeared on video and said that he always wanted to wrestle in a TNA pay-per-view. And that he always wanted to wrestle for the X Division title. So he's very excited. And Leon Slater is very excited. And both of these guys are very young. I don't think either one of them is 25 yet. So they got all the time in the world to develop better characters and better promos and all that sort of stuff, which is all going to be sorely lacking here. But getting Javon Evans on this card, he is hot as fish grease right now. The crazy thing is he did a great job on SmackDown. We will see him do a great job at No Mercy. Even though he has to wrestle that Temple of Horse shit, Josh Briggs, he's going to do a great job there. And he's going to kill it at Bound for Glory. So he's about to have a very, very, very strong next couple of weeks. Brian Alvarez really loves this guy and has been flipping his lid every time they don't just put the belt on Javon Evans. He doesn't understand that Javon Evans as a personality is not there yet. As a character, he's not there yet. Physically, he can do all the moves. He can do tremendous things. But in order to be a top draw, he has to be more than just an athletic guy. We need something to sink our teeth into. Like, if he wasn't such a likable person, I probably would just call him a spot monkey and not pay attention to this shit. Because he can't really cut promos. His promos are not that strong. Even though I do like when he gets aggressive. I did enjoy that. And that's when he was aggressive with Trick Williams and Obafemi. I like that. I like that side of Javon Evans. I want to see more of that. Don't turn him heel, but I do like more of that. But personality, promos, we need more out of Javon Evans in order to get him to the main event level. But as of right now, he's doing super mid-card stuff. And he's right there at the point of, as soon as he gets the right vehicle, the right character, the right motivation, he's going to be a main event guy. And this might get him there. It's just a match with Leon Slater, but it's going to be a highlight match. It's going to be something that is going to steal the show at one of the biggest shows of the year for TNA. So take that for how you want it. But I'm very excited for the NXT-TNA element. And that's the theme. NXT versus TNA. NXT is challenging for another TNA championship. They've got 2 of them already. If they were smart, which they might be, they might defend the NXT Tag Team Championships at Bound for Glory 2, or have Dark State wrestle for the tag team of TNA Extraction for the Tag Team Championships. I don't know what those 2 people could be, but maybe you have Dark State lose the Tag Team Championships to a TNA team. I don't know who that team could be, though. Outside of the Rascals, who is like the only other tag team that matters in TNA. But I like the idea of Bound for Glory being NXT versus TNA. I like that idea. Obviously, it's not going to be the upper level guys, because Obafemi's, at least I don't see him wrestling on Bound for Glory. But Trick Williams and Santana, that's good. I don't mind that. They had a good match before. They got a storyline going. Both can talk. Both can work. I support that. Kalani Jordan and Indy Hartwell, well, that's on the other extreme. Kalani Jordan ain't much of a personality, but she's very athletic. Indy Hartwell ain't much of a personality, and she works like a giraffe. That's probably going to be a disaster. But Leon Slater versus Javon Evans, they're basically mirror images of each other. They're going to have a great in-ring match. It probably won't be much in terms of character and personality and promos, but it'll be a great exhibition. And that's really what the heart and soul of the X Division title anyway. And then, of course, they're going to have regular TNA stuff with like the Hardcore War and Call Your Shot Gauntlet and all that shit. But I thoroughly enjoyed the main event to this show. So I at least enjoyed that. And that's the most enjoyable thing on the show. Mustafa Ali and Moose was also pretty damn solid. But overall, it's don't waste your time. TNA Victory Road 2025. It's in the books. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
No one does it better.